Tiga.
Entrepreneurship has become part of our modern life. Many people decide that they will become an entrepreneur. And one of the most important aspects for you to become an entrepreneur is that you have a leadership. But what is exactly a leadership is? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Daffa Ichsan and I will explain to you what is leadership.
So, leadership has become something important in an entrepreneurship. Some of you may already know or understand what is leadership, but what is actually a leadership? What makes you a good leader? In this topic, I will explain more about leadership. So, we will focus on four main parts. So, about what is leadership, a good leader character, leadership types, and what's leader versus manager. So, what makes leader and a manager different? First, let's talk about what is leadership. So leadership comes from the word lead, which means guiding. And person who leads someone is called leader. So leader is person that capable to influence other people with its power, so they will act according to its desire. Now, leadership itself means that it is an activity or a process of influencing others so they will do action to achieve common goals. So they can influence their subordinates, their friend, or someone in their group. So they would do action to achieve a common goal or to achieve a purpose in a organization. As Ronald Reagan said, the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest thing. He is the one that gets to the people to do the greatest thing. So the leader is not just one person doing the great thing. Not only himself, but he also move his subordinate to do the exact same thing as he is, to achieve also greatest thing. Now, we already talked about what is leadership, but what is actually makes someone a good leader? There is a character that a good leader has to have. So there is a lot of the character of a good leader. There is honest, responsible, wise, humility, fair, smart, communicative, courage, integrity, caring, willing to sacrifice, assertive, humble, empathy, critical, disciplined, modesty, visionary, transcends, initiative, and firm. So all this character is a character that a good leader is supposed to have. Because when you have this character, people will respect you. People will think of you as a good leader, and thus they will follow you. They will do what you command them to do. Next, leadership itself has a power. So there is six power of leadership. There is consider, reward, experience, expert, reference, and legitimate. Conserve is about punishment, it's about threat. When you have leadership, you can threaten or punish your subordinates if they didn't follow your command, if they didn't do what you want them to do. That is considered. Reward is when someone already do what you want them to do, and then you give them a reward. So it gives you a leadership power when you give a reward to your subordinates. And next, experience. So experience is that power that's come from your experience. So you say you already to lead some big project or some big company organization, there is experience because you already know how you should lead them, because you already know how to become a leader. Next is expert. Expert is more to the your capability to lead someone. When you have the ability to lead someone, you are an expert of it. Next is reference. Reference is when you have some charisma, when you have some aura that show that you are a leader. And next is legitimate. So legitimate is mean that you have the power of leadership is come from a legit source. Say that you are elected as the CEO of the company. That is legitimate power. So this sixth power is what a leader should have. You can have one of them or most of them, but all of this leadership power is divided into this six things. Next is how was actually a leadership born? There is three theory about how a leader is formed. The genetic theory said that leaders are born, not made. So it means that ever since we were live, some people were born to become a leader, while the others are not. But the social theory said the exact opposite, that leaders are made, not born. So it means that every person in this world have a chance to become a leader. It depends on them whether they are made to be a leader or not. But the ecologic theory say that the leaders are both born and made. So when they're born, they already have these leader traits, and then they made them. They made those leadership traits. How about you? Do you have the genetic theory, social, or ecologic? And every leader has a basic potential. So when you become a leader, the very first thing that you're supposed to have is knowledge. If you imagine like triangle, knowledge is the bottom of them because it becomes your pillar to make your leadership. And next there is skill of how you use your leadership to move people. And last at the top is the soul. When you have the soul of a leadership, then you are a leader. And the last thing that we will talk about is what is make leader and manager. What is actually the difference between the leader and the manager? Well, leader is, of course, his purpose is to leading while the manager is managing. But there is also some different characters that these both have. So the difference is that in the leader, they are innovating. They make innovation. They they encourage people to give innovation to their company, to their organization. And also they are developing. They develop their organization, they develop the idea. Next is giving inspiration. When you are a leader, you should inspire people to follow you. When you are a leader, people will aspire you, people will respect you. Thus, you should give them an inspiration. Next is foresightedness. A leader is supposed to have a very foresight. They didn't just see a temporary goal. They see a long goal. They see a goal see a goal that is long far away. Next, a leader is asking what and why. So they didn't ask how and when. They just ask what is that and why is that happen. That is a leader. Next is appearing. The appearing mean that the leader always appear when there is something happening in the company, in an organization. So they didn't just ask other people to do it, other people to solve that problem. But he also come. He come to help them. He come to also think how to solve this. Next is challenging status quo, and the last is doing right things. Okay, so leader do what the right things are. Okay, it will be different than doing things right. Next, how about manager? Well, the manager do is first, of course, managing. He need to manage about the company. He need to manage the organization. Next is preserving. A manager is trying as much as he can to preserve the ideal condition of his company. So instead of developing like leader, he just want the condition to be preserved, to be the like the ideal that the company should have. Next is controlling. So a manager is control his subordinates. He control what a person's supposed to do and not supposed to do. Next is short-sightedness. So instead of far-sightedness like a leader, a manager only have a short-sightedness. So they actually didn't care much about what's in the far future. He only care about what in front of us. What's our short-term goal? Next is how asking how and when. As I explained before, a manager has a controlling personality. So they only ask how and when. How is this thing's gonna work and when it's gonna work. Something like that. And next is initiating. So when there's some problem that occur in the organization or in the company, they will initiate the his group to solve the problem. But he sometimes appear in the in solving the problem. So he just initiating. He just move the people or will make people to try to solve the problem. Next is accepting goal status, and the last is doing things right. So what is actually the difference between doing right things and doing things right? Doing right things is that you do something that is a right thing. Okay, so you just have to do all of things, but you have to know what is the right and what is the wrong. A leader will do the right things, while the manager will do the things right. So will do what they do. They have to do it right. Okay, they didn't care much about whether it's right or whether it's wrong. Next, there's actually many type of leadership. There is autocratic, laissez-faire, paternalistic, charismatic, and democratic. So we will see what is different between all of this. The first is autocratic. So autocratic is the and its leader assume that his or her leadership is a right, thus often making decisions without consider other people's opinion and only care about its own interests. So it's a bit the same like king, because a king assumes that his leadership is actually a right from God, and thus he rarely has other opinions when he make a decision, because he only care about its own interests. And the characteristic of an autocratic leadership is, first, they assume that the organization is a private property. They think that the company or the organization that he lead he lead is a private property. It's property that he has. Next is making our organization purpose identical to our purpose. As I explained before, that the leadership is often making decisions without other people's opinion and only care about its own interests. He tried to make the organization purpose is identical to his or her own purpose. Next is thinking that subordinates are only a tool. So they think that the subordinates are only a tool to move the company, to make the company move, to make the organization achieve its purpose. So they didn't think that subordinates are human. They are supposed to support. They only think that the subordinates are only a tool. Next is hard to accept critic, advice, and opinion from other, because thinking he or she is the best. Because he feel that he has a right to be a leader. He has every capability to become a leader. So oftentimes they hard to accept critics. They didn't want to accept critics or advice or opinion from others. They only care about he about what he think. Next is always depend on formal authority. So he thinks that everything it should be a formal. Even the authority that he has is a formal authority. Next, And the last is often approached with force and threat element to command subordinate. So they often push people, they make people move, but unfortunately, it's often come with force or threat element. So people around them didn't move because they feel like they're supposed to do, but for like they are afraid because the leader is threatening them. That is the autocratic. Next is laissez-faire. So in laissez-faire type, the leader assumes that his or her subordinates are mature person but already know their own duty to fulfill to achieve organization purpose. And the laissez-faire characteristic is that they already know, they're assuming that subordinates already know and mature to follow the organization rules. So they didn't have to think about much about scolding other people because because here sitting the subordinates are already mature. Next is have a passive role. So it's more to observe and oversee what his subordinates do. He didn't meddling too much with 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 their people's work. Next is allowing hers or her subordinates work on its own way without meddling too much. So as said before, they they will have more of a passive role. So they will more observe and oversee. And thus they didn't actually meddling too much about how a subordinate is supposed to work. All he needs to know that the work is done and it's done right. Next is sometimes work plans are made without leader intervention. It seems as before, it's because they have more a passive role, so they only need to observe and oversee, and the work plan is up to his subordinates. And last, if subordinates make a mistake, leader immediately scold or give penalty. So when they make a mistake, they will immediately giving penalty or give them or scold them. Next is paternalistic. So paternalistic is the leader is using a fatherhood approach to move his or her subordinates. So he feel like he is the father of the entire organization, that he is the head of the family of the organization. But sometimes this approach is too sentimental. The characteristic is that first assuming that subordinates are not major. So it's the exact opposite of laissez-faire. Paternalistic leader think that their subordinates are not mature. They think that they still need some guide from the leader. Next is behave too defensive to subordinate because the leader assumes that he is the father of his subordinate and thus he will try to defend his subordinate as much. But this fatherhood approach have a negative impact. The third and the negative impact is that they will rarely give the subordinates opportunity to make a decision and rarely give them opportunity to improve their creative thinking and initiative. So because the leader think that they are not mature, they are not he or she think that they are not supposed to make any decision because he feel like if they make a decision, it will it is not good. It's not good decision because he think that his subordinates are not mature. And it is same with the opportunity to improve their creative thinking and initiative. So why is it happen? It is the five character. The five character is that think he or she think that they know the most of any problem because they have this fatherhood approach. because they have feeling like they are the father. They feel like they know about any problem and they know how to solve the problem. Next is charismatic. So we may already hear about it. A charismatic leader is able to move their subordinates because they have loyalty and trust to their leader. There is a lot of charismatic leaders around us, but how is exactly a charismatic leadership? What how a leadership can be called a charismatic type? Well, the first character they have is their subordinates have a great loyalty and something that appear from full trust to their beloved, respected and admired leader. So we can see that all the charismatic leader, even though the company is not doing good, and even if it is among if the company that he lead is doing really bad, subordinates have great loyalty to him and thus stay with him, supporting no matter what happened. And this is appear because of their full trust to their leader. Next is that those loyalty doesn't come from wealth, education, or the leader's own age. So also the subordinates didn't care about what's the leader's wealth. They didn't care about the education of the leader, even the age. That is something that a charismatic leader have. His follower didn't follow him just because from wealth, just because from education or leader's age, but but it is come from a full trust to their leader. And last is order or decision from a leader, whether it's wrong or right, will be highly appreciated and supported by all of the members. This is one of the good type of leadership because in this type people will respect it one to each other. The subordinates have a great loyalty to its leader. And last is democratic. So in this type, the leader will try as best it can to prioritize the group interests rather than individual interests. So it is the opposite of autocratic. And the characteristic of democratic leadership is in process to move its subordinate, always refer on the opinion that human is the most noble creature in the world. Next is always happy to accept advice, opinion, and critics from subordinate because it is a democratic leadership. So he or she, the leader, is always happy to accept any advice, any opinion, or any critics from the subordinates. Next is they will forgive their subordinate if they make a mistake and correct them. So unlike paternalistic, where the leader will scold them or give them penalty, democratic leader will forgive the, the mistake made by their subordinate and even correct them. They tell them what their subordinate supposed to do. Next is focusing more on teamwork to achieve purpose. So instead of just achieve, achieving purpose alone, he will try to focus more on teamwork because he believes that in our organization or company, teamwork is one of the most important aspects to achieve purpose, and thus he or she will try to more focus on teamwork. Next, always try to make his her subordinates more successful than him or herself. So oftentimes they will support their subordinates, they will give encouragement so that subordinates will become more successful. After that, try to develop his or her capability as a leader. So when a democratic leader become the leader, he didn't just stop there to develop his capability. He will learn and learn and learn. So it will develop and increase her capability as a leader. And next is take a long time to make a decision. It may seem weird, it may seem not good, but actually the reason why they take a long time to make a decision is because he thinks about it carefully. He didn't want to make a decision that will have a bad effect on the company, that have bad effect on his or her subordinates. So thus he or she will try to take a long time to make a decision. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the topic that we already talked about. Leadership. That is the trait that we all already have, but some of us will make them to be a good leader, while some of us are not. And in entrepreneurship, leadership is a very important thing.